I would like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land, sea and sky in which I live by acknowledging the Gubbi Gubbi Cubbi Cubbi people. I recognise and support the strength, wisdom and resilience of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and the long and rich histories that continue to benefit us all. I walk on this country in the spirit of reconciliation by acknowledging the wrongs of the past and actively embracing the true expanse of Australian culture. I'm grateful for the opportunity to participate in and witness the flourishing of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture once again on this land. This presentation is based on the context of a student who will be referred to as Student D. Student D has 3 learning needs identified due to a range of interrelated learning hindrances: attendance to class and learning, academic skills, specifically participation and dialogue in class, and socialisation in the school and in class. These issues may seem similar but are interrelated features of a successful education, similar to numeracy and mathematics being related but not the same. For this presentation, the learning need of academic skills, specifically educative dialogue in class, will be addressed. Firstly, by discussing the pedagogical approach for this learning need, the Universal Design for Learning. Secondly, aligning this pedagogical approach to the teaching strategy of Think, Pair, Shares. Thirdly, by considering this approach in the context of all students in the class to create a positive learning environment. And lastly, this approach will be justified in terms of a good teaching practice. To arrive at a pedagogical approach, teachers need to have an accurate synopsis of student ecological systems as stated by Bronfenbrenner, talking directly with parents and education stakeholders, and to have data on student success from multiple sources to avoid personal bias and evidence the learning. Teachers use student contextual information and achievements to form valid educative goals. To ethically educate students to their full potential, teachers must attend to the whole child, belonging in the classroom, being scaffolded, and becoming confident and creative individuals. Firstly, the pedagogical approach of the Universal Design for Learning will be used to plan for achieving Student D's academic goal of educative dialogue in the class. This framework calls for the use of multiple representations of content and more specifically a strength-based approach. In this context, Student D's artistic ability is used as a vehicle for facilitating educative dialogue in class. Secondly, teachers must align their pedagogical approaches to relevant teaching strategies to achieve educative goals. In this context, using Think, Pair, Shares during class with an artistic focus would allow Student D to engage with the content more meaningfully and provide a mechanism for educative dialogue. For example, if this strategy were used in a Year 2 HASS Inquiry and Skills content description under the questioning substrand for students to pose questions about past and present objects, people, places and events, and using the knowledge content description, the way the world is represented in geographic divisions and the location of Australia in relation to these divisions, this content would provide an opportunity to use Think, Pair, Share to begin Student D's development of dialogic academic skills through art as a strength-based approach. Using the accessing prior knowledge phase of this unit, Student D can be scaffolded into group work through the Think, Pair, Share activities. These activities will begin with known, trusted students in the class and build to lesser known students. To demonstrate this alignment to student learning development, for example, the question could be asked, where is Australia in the world? Students could work together to draw Australia in the context of the world, then adding where they think Moranbah is in this map. Students will be asked to draw a map or a globe however they like and add as much visual details as possible. This will provide an opportunity for meaningful educative peer-to-peer dialogue. This strategy will achieve student learning outcomes without inhibiting the integrated learning outcomes of all students in the class. Thirdly, this strategy will benefit this student, their peers, and create a positive classroom learning environment. As stated by Schwab and the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers, the context of student learning is vital to the success of education. For example, asking a student from a suburban area what a three-corner jack is may lead to confusion, whereas a student from regional Australia might wince and begin to tell a story. To provide meaningful and inspiring education, teachers need to properly understand the visible and invisible nuances of the students they are talking to and genuinely care about these differences outside of a personally beneficial hierarchy. As Grant states in his holistic approach framework, relationships are a key facet of complex whole child approaches. To discount educative strengths through previously enforced descending values is discounting potential for innovation. As Sarah reiterates, valuing a range of societal perspectives is a developing skill in Australia, and teachers must acknowledge this and lead the way. This Think, Pair, Share strategy scaffolds Student D's participation in class while respecting the developing nature of this context. Using art as a vehicle for motivation to participate in class opens up new possibilities for students who are used to text-based expressions of knowledge and engagement with content. This may result in a counterbalance of usually successful students struggling with a new way of cognition. There may also be an undercurrent of negative student behaviour the teacher has not accounted for, which will need to be monitored for and reflected on if there is no improvement to Student D through this strategy. However, this strategy gives Student D common ground to associate with his peers and see their skills and his respected and reflected in learning experiences. Finally, why is this evidence of good teaching practice? The Universal Design for Learning and the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers support that this is good teaching practice because it is planned for, based on previous student evidence and educative theory. By using a strengths-based approach and meaningful teaching strategies that align to the goal of educative dialogue in class, a plan is created using evidence of the goal's context. It will, however, be definitively good practice once it is consistently implemented and the impact of learning is recorded. By encouraging Student D to engage with a small number of students and participate in class, the teacher is providing a non-threatening vehicle for academic skill development, which acknowledges and focuses on the purpose and goals of Student D's education rather than the means of achieving it. Information is developing and flexible, so too must be its delivery. Teachers have the power to change the world, and they do every day.